Hear the story of the Golem of Prague, created by Rabbi Leib, created to protect the Jews. This is one of the most fantastical stories that you'll ever hear, but there's also a lot of real history in it. The story takes place in the city of Prague. Now, Prague is one of those places where the country keeps changing. Right now, it's the capital of the Czech Republic. Before that, it was the capital of Czechoslovakia. At the time of this story, it was the capital of Bohemia. Bohemia was a country that was part of the Holy Roman Empire. The story takes place 1580. That's about 100 years after Columbus discovered America. At that time, Rudolph II was the Holy Roman Emperor. And he moved from Vienna, the capital of Austria. He moved to the city of Prague because there were all sorts of interesting mystical things going on in Prague. There were alchemists there who were said to change lead into gold. And there were also many saintly Jewish scholars who could do wondrous works by using the book, the Kabbalah, that could bring things to life. So here we have, in 1580, the leader of the Jews was Rabbi Leib, a very saintly, holy man. And at that time, all of the Jews in Prague had to live within a ghetto. And there were many cities in Europe that had ghettos where they had to live. There were walls. They couldn't go out at night. They couldn't use weapons. And the laws of the land did not protect them at all. There are 3 different versions of this story that I've kind of woven together. The book over there, The Golem, was written by Isaac Bashevis Singer, and it came out in 1982. And this book by Barbara Rajewski, and this one by David Wisniewski just came out in 1996. And this book won the Caldecott Award for its illustrations. Now there was a man, Count Jan Bratislavsky, and he was rich. His family had always owned vast lands in Bohemia. He had never wanted for anything in his life. And by the time he was an adult, he was used to squandering his family's money. He had a beautiful wife, Helena. She'd been rich too. And she'd presented him with a lovely little daughter, Hanka. But none of this mattered to the Count. All he thought about was drinking and gambling and drinking and gambling. And he had already squandered away a lot of his family's fortune. And at last his beautiful wife sickened and died from her terrible life. But still the Count drank and gambled and drank and gambled. Well, he woke one morning with a terrible hangover after a night of carousing and gambling, and he saw in front of him a note. I will pay 75,000 ducats. And he had signed that note. Oh my, I must have had quite a night. 75,000 ducats. Where can I get that kind of money? Now, 2 thoughts came into his head. One was that his wife had beautiful, beautiful jewelry worth 1,000,000 ducats. And his little daughter, Hanka, was supposed to get that beautiful jewelry when she turned 18. And the other thought that he had was, I can always go to the moneylender. Within the Jewish community, there was a fine old wealthy man, Reb Eliezer Polvar, and he loaned money out. And the Count had already paid many, many trips to Reb Eliezer's house. So he went there once again, and he said, well, I need some more money. And old Reb Eliezer said, you already owe me thousands and thousands of ducats, and you haven't repaid any of it. I can't loan you any more money. You must lend it to me, said the Count. No, said Reb Eliezer. All right, you will be sorry. And the Count left the old man's house. Reb Eliezer and his wife, though very, very rich and always beautifully dressed, spent most of their time helping the poor. And every night, Reb Eliezer would read the Holy Scriptures. And as Passover was coming up, right now he was reading through the Passover story. So it was very late at night in Reb Eliezer's house, and he just started his reading when there was a knock at the door. And he went to the door, and there were soldiers. Are you the Jew, Reb Eliezer Pulver? Yes, I am. Well, you're under arrest. What did I do? You are accused of stealing and killing the little daughter of Count Jan Bratislawski, and taking her body and killing her and using her blood in your matzahs. Now at that time, there was a lie. It was called the blood lie or the blood libel that was said about the Jews, that they took Christian babies and killed them and mixed their blood in their matzahs. Nothing could be further from the truth. It was totally forbidden for Jews to use blood at all, and matzahs are just made out of water and flour. But still, the lie persisted. And Reb Eliezer was taken off to prison. The next day, there was a trial. Reb Eliezer was alone in the courtroom, and before him was a very stern judge. And there was the sneering Count looking at him. And beside the Count, there was a drunken man and a woman whose face was covered with warts. Reb Eliezer Pulvar, you are accused of stealing the little daughter of the Count and taking her and killing her and draining her blood for your matzahs. No, I would never do such a thing. We are totally forbidden to ever use blood, and I would never harm a child, and I'm an old man. I couldn't go out of my house at night. Everyone in my household will swear that I was there. But they are all Jews. The Count, do you have some witnesses? Yes, I do, the Count said. And the drunken man staggered to the witness stand. Let's see. It was last night. No. It was 2 nights ago. No. It was 3 nights ago. I heard a sound in little Hanka's room, and I went in and I saw that man, and he was grabbing the child, and he was stuffing her in a bag, and he had a knife. Listen, said Reb Eliezer, you are a young man and I am old. If you saw this, why didn't you stop me? Oh, I was afraid of your knife. No, I didn't do that. You have more witnesses? And the woman with warts all over her face, Barbara, came forward and she said, I saw the same thing too. I heard the screams of that sweet little child, and I saw that man stuffing her into a sack. Why didn't you help the child if you love her so much? I was afraid of your knife, and I don't have to answer to you. And the judge said, Reb Eliezer, tell us, who were your accomplices? There was no one. I didn't do any of this. You will remain in prison, be fed bread and water, and be tortured until you tell us who helped you. Well, the news of this terrible occurrence spread like wildfire throughout the Jewish community. And Rabbi Leib didn't know what to do. He went to his study at night and he prayed and he read books and slept. And suddenly he was awakened. And there he saw a giant hand with a finger writing words on the wall. And the words spelled Golem. Golem. A golem was a giant made out of clay and brought to life by words from the Kabbalah. Only a saintly, holy man could do such a thing. Was he, Rabbi Leib, such a man? He opened the window of his study and looked out into the night. And he heard curses being screamed on the other side of the wall, and he saw bricks and rocks being hurled into the ghetto. Perhaps it was the only way. The next day, Rabbi Leib called his son-in-law, Itzhak Cohen, and his finest student, Yaakov Sassoon, to him, and he said, "Tonight, I need your help. Tonight, we will create the Golem." So after sunset, they walked outside the ghetto, which they were forbidden to do. They walked through the city, and though they passed many people, no one seemed to see them at all. And they went to the riverbank of the river Vlatava. "Gather clay," said the rabbi. And with almost superhuman strength, and in a remarkably short period of time, the two assistants gathered mounds and mounds of clay. And then the rabbi went to work, and with his fingers, he molded the figure of a huge, giant man. And there he lay, along the riverbank. "We will need clothes for him. Go," said the rabbi, "find clothing for our giant." Itzhak Cohen and Yaakov Sassoon walked back into the town mumbling, "How can we get clothes that big? Even if we got a tailor here tonight, it would take him weeks and weeks to make clothes for this huge man." As they were walking through the city streets, they walked past the shop of a hat maker, and there in the window was an absolutely enormous hat. And they went inside, and they said to the hat maker, "Where did you get that hat?" And the hat maker said, "Oh, strange story. 40 years ago, a circus came to town, and they were putting on a play of David and Goliath, and then they all fought amongst each other, and they had to leave, and I bought the costume for Goliath for a very little amount of money. I thought it would attract people to my shop, but it's getting very dusty. Do you want it?" "Yes," they said. And so for a very little bit of money, they bought the clothes of the Goliath character. They went back to the riverbank, and the rabbi said to one of them, "Walk around the body in that direction." And he told him what words to say. And he said to the other man, "Walk around the body in that direction." And he told him the words to say. And slowly, they could see the clay start to become living flesh. And then the rabbi, with his staff, wrote letters on the forehead of the sleeping man. He wrote the word, Emet, truth. And slowly, they began to breathe. And then he stood up. And the rabbi said, "You are the Golem." "Yes," said the figure. "You will do what I tell you." "Yes." "Your name will be Joseph, and you will protect the Jews." "Yes." They dressed the Golem in the costume of Goliath, and now 4 men returned to the synagogue. The rabbi took the Golem to the attic of the synagogue and said, "You must search the town, and you must find a little girl named Hanka. I have no idea where she is, but you will find her." "Yes," said the Golem. Now, Passover was about a week away, and they had set the final trial of Reb Eleazar for that time. And the rabbi was allowed in the courtroom. And the judge said, "Reb Eleazar Polvar, who were your assistants in kidnapping and killing the little girl Hanka?" "No one." But suddenly, the door to the courtroom burst open, And there stood a giant with a face of clay, and in his arms was the little girl, Hanka. He put her down and left so quickly that everyone sort of turned to each other. Had they really seen such a creature, or had they just dreamed it? And the little girl ran to the Count. "Papa, Papa!" And the Count turned pale. "Come here, child," said the judge. "Where have you been?" "I've been hidden in a basement," she said. "Who hid you in the basement?" "They did," she said, and she pointed to the man Stefan, who was still drunk, and the woman Barbara with her face covered in warts. "Come here," the judge said to Stefan and Barbara. "Did the Count order you to hide this child?" "Yes, he did," Barbara said, "and he paid us a lot of money to do so." "Thank you," said the judge. No longer would he take part in such a sham trial. "You, Count, you will spend the rest of your life in jail. And you, Rebbe Eliezer, you are free to go and celebrate your holiday." But before the beginning of Passover, there were still many tasks for the Golem to do. And the news about this huge giant who seemed to do strange and mystical things reverberated through not just the ghetto, but the entire city of Prague. It turned out that some of the matzahs had been poisoned. And it was found that there were 2 assistants to the baker who would come in and put poison into the flour. And the Golem Joseph found these 2 red-bearded baker's assistants and the vial of poison and just brought them to the police station. And they were put in jail. And then there was also a butcher who had gone to the graveyard and had dug up the body of a recently dead baby and put it in a pig's skin and was trying to put it at the house of a Jew. But the Golem found him and brought the butcher, pig, dead baby and all and just deposited them in front of the police station. So slowly, the people began to realize that the blood lie was just that. None of this was happening at all. And there was a happy Passover. But after that was over, did everybody in the ghetto become rich? No. Things went on pretty much the same, but the people did have a slightly better attitude towards the Jewish community. But what do you do with a golem? What do you do with a huge giant? It took the rabbi a lot of time just to make sure that he always told Joseph what to do, and he particularly always told Joseph what to do before sundown of the Sabbath, because it was forbidden to do work on the Sabbath, and if he was telling the Golem what to do, he would be doing work, and he shouldn't do this. So he was always very careful to say, "Joseph, all during the Sabbath, you just sit on your stool." But one Sabbath, he forgot. And everyone was in the synagogue praying, when suddenly someone burst into the synagogue and said, "Rabbi, Rabbi, the Golem has run amok." And he was out in the marketplace smashing everything. He was said to have taken a horse and pulled it limb from limb. The rabbi said, "I can't do anything about this. It's forbidden to do work on the Sabbath." No, human life is more sacred than the law. And he walked out of the synagogue. And he walked to the marketplace where the Golem was running wildly about, smashing everything, and he sighed and he said, "Joseph, go back and sit on your stool." And Joseph immediately became meek and obedient and did what he was told. Well, now everyone was afraid of the Golem. And the emperor himself, Rudolph, called for a meeting with the rabbi. And at the palace, the emperor said, "Well, do you intend to enslave us all with this huge giant that is at your command?" And the rabbi said, "Why would I do that? We who have been slaves would never inflict it on anyone else." "Well, will you destroy the giant? Will you guarantee that life will be safe for the Jewish community?" "I guarantee it," said the emperor. "Very well. And the rabbi went back to the attic of the synagogue. And there Joseph stood, looking out the window, looking at the red sunset creeping over the many buildings of Prague. "Joseph," said the rabbi, "it is time." "No," said Joseph. "Yes." "Will there be sunsets where I go?" "No, there will be nothing." "Then I will not go." But the rabbi took his staff, and up on the forehead of the Golem, he erased the first letter. So the word emet, truth, became met, death. And the Golem collapsed, lifeless. And the rabbi called Itzhak Cohen and Yaakov Sassoon to come and help him. And they covered the Golem with old prayer books. And though he had not been human, they still said Kaddish for him. And so that was the end of the Golem of Prague. But who knows? Perhaps he will come back when he is needed. So now we're going to take a little break, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the story.
Sleepy says, are you safety smart? Today's safety lesson is don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to strangers, a warning we know. Who is a stranger? Watch, learn, and grow. Stop. Sleepy says a stranger's anyone you don't know. Never talk or go with the stranger, even if they know your name. Remember, kids, Sleepy says. Strangers seem friendly and act like they care. They might try to hurt you, so always beware.
Now we're going to talk a little bit more about this fantastical story that you just heard. In this book by David Wisniewski, prize-winning book, and all of the illustrations are fantastical paper cuttings here. Ben is going to explain a little bit about this picture. This is where the rabbi awakens in his study and he sees this hand writing words on the wall. Could you tell us, Ben, a little bit about what the rabbi is doing here?
I think the rabbi is looking at, looks like some sort of a Torah, like right there, that little thing. And there's the pointer that looks like it has a finger on the end, and that is called a yad in Hebrew. It's used to point your way in the Torah because it's very small printing, and you can lose your place very easily.
So
that's basically what that picture looks like.
And now Julie is going to explain a little bit about these letters. And this is writing Golem on the wall. So, and the letters are going in this direction, from right to left. So which letter is this?
That's a Gimel, and that's a Lamed, and that's a final Mem.
And there aren't any vowels written, so it'd just be Golem.
In the Torah, there's no vowels.
Right.
But when you're learning, you can use vowels.
Yes. And this beautiful hand looks like it's cut out of some sort of shiny, transparent paper, which makes it look most mystical. And now, down here, Jessie? She's going to explain a little bit about the letters that are written on the forehead of the Golem. Oh, you're going to do that. Who is going to explain about this? Julie was going to explain about that too? Okay, back to Julie.
Well, the first letter is an Aleph. The second letter is a Mem, and the third is a Tet.
And when you erase the Aleph, you get Met. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And now, that Met means death.
Yep.
And emet is truth. And now back here we're going to have the alphabet, Hebrew alphabet, recited by these scholars right here.
Olive, Bet,
Gimel, Daled,
Hey, Vav, Zion, Het,
Tet, Yud, Kaf, Haf, Lamed, Mem,
Nun, Sameh,
Ayin, Pei,
Sadi, Ku,
Resh, Shin, Ta.
Thank you. And now I think that Ben had a few thoughts on the story. He'd read the story before. So what are some of your thoughts on this fantastical tale?
When during the break, Mrs. Frank was talking to us about would we like it if the golem came back, and what were our thoughts about that. And I just thought the golem would be sort of helpful in the hectic life that we have sometimes in society today, with all the wars that are happening in Africa and all the bad things that are happening around the world. The golem might have helped. So that's just what I thought about.
But you never know what he might end up doing. Oh. Did anybody else have any comments that you wanted to make?
Could I add to what Ben?
Sure. Just
Okay, well, do I really have to?
yes, you do.
Well, I like to add to Ben's, like about the wars and stuff, maybe in World War II and World War One, maybe he could help in, of stopping it and stuff like stopping wars and stuff like Ben said.
Particularly World War II
Yeah.
with the Holocaust, that would have been very. But of course, the golem can go either way. I mean, if you don't, it's almost like nuclear energy. You don't know what's going to happen. And you had something else, Julie. Yeah.
Well, since the rabbi was, of course, Jewish, and he was like the golem's master, sort of, he would probably tell him to be with the Jews and help the Jews out. He probably wouldn't go, because he was the one that created him.
That's right.
And
but he was an old man. May he live to be 120, but at some point the rabbi would have died, and would there be a follower who would have been as saintly and as strong-willed to control him? So it's, you've got to be careful of that. And the golem story was influenced, it reverberated around Europe, and one of the people who heard this story was Mary Shelley, who wrote the story of Frankenstein. So that's kind of an offshoot of this story. And who knows? Maybe he will come back to life again. Thank you.
What if the rabbi died and the golem had to come back, but who would wake him up?
That's the question. It was all done sort of mystically. He was needed at that time. I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Thank you all. You were a great audience.